Hello and welcome back to the Rich Alvarez Show. I am your host, as always, Rich Alvarez. You know what's funny? It was like not even a week ago that we were talking about DC's The Flash, the movie starring Ezra Miller, not to be confused with the excellent television show of Flash starring Grant Gustin, or Gustain, however you say it. I never knew how to say it. But we were talking about how, they'd switched directors, 3 times. They had gotten 5 different sets of writers, and it seemed like it was a pretty doomed project. In fact, I titled that video "The Flash Movie No Longer Happening" because it seemed apparent that it was no longer happening. In all of my, educated guesses on all of the things surrounding that movie, I just assumed it wasn't happening. Well, it turns out, at least they want us to believe, now, Warner Brothers is saying today, that they've gotten It director, It as in Pennywise, in case people aren't familiar with the series, It. And that movie is an excellent movie. There was It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2 is coming out in just a little bit. Andy Muschietti, who is the director of It, is apparently taking over directing duties for the Flash movie. So now the Flash movie, as this video is titled, Flash movie still happening with Andy Muschietti directing. It's really interesting because we had heard that, again, they had gone through 5 sets of writers, and Ezra Miller was not on board with any of the previous drafts. Of course, Ezra Miller is the one playing the Flash in this movie. He played the Flash in Justice League and a little bit in Batman v Superman. He wanted a very dark movie, which is, I think, what DC is kind of trying to step away from based on the negative reactions to Batman v Superman. And that's why Justice League, they had Joss Whedon step in and try to lighten it up with some jokes and some extra scenes that made it a little light, and maybe he changed the whole ending. I don't know, people still want that Snyder cut. But, the thing for me is, I don't think anybody cared that the movies were darker in tone than, say, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think what people wanted was just better movies, I think that, you can have movies, there are thousands probably, examples of great movies that have dark tones. I mean, look at Apocalypse Now or The Godfather, both, just great movies with very dark tones. And they weren't bad because they had a dark tone. They were great movies that happened to have a dark tone. It's very silly the way that Warner Brothers has deflected criticism. Like, oh, I guess we shouldn't have gone too dark. People are used to the lighthearted nature of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so we should try to backpedal a little bit and get a little lighter. Your movies weren't bad because of the darker tone. Your movies were bad because they were bad. Can't stand studios sometimes and their constant deflect. Anyways, so Ezra Miller was like, no, we gotta have a darker movie, and Warner Brothers is like, so they're trying to find a balance. And that's why I thought it was for sure that Ezra Miller was fired. Now, again, Ezra Miller could still be fired. They did not tell us that Ben Affleck was fired as Batman until a year after they had fired him. They just wanted to keep the public appearance that he was still there for some reason. So it could very much be the case that Ezra Miller is no longer the Flash, but they don't want to tell us yet until they've, probably until they've really locked down their Flash movie. Again, the Flash movie, which I was certain was canceled, is now back up again, and they're saying that Andy Muschietti is in, and that would make him the 4th director to take over this project. Here's my guess. My guess is that they were having a slew of creative differences with Ezra Miller, and he saw the Flash movie going one way, and they saw it going another, and then they thought about how they're trying to restructure the DCEU a lot, and how they've already replaced Ben Affleck as Batman. Henry Cavill says he's out as Superman. They probably figure at this point they're going to cut their losses and do kind of a light restart. They'll keep Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, and they'll keep Aquaman, but other than that, it'll be like a whole new cast and kind of a light reboot, in that they'll probably ignore a lot of things that happened in Batman v Superman and Justice League. So I do think the Flash is getting replaced, if only just because Ezra Miller was pretty dead set on wanting to be the Flash in a darker movie. And you may think, well, then why get Andy Muschietti, who's at this point most famous for directing It Chapter 1 and pretty soon It Chapter 2? And he's made Warner Brothers a lot of money now with that movie. I think what they want to do is they want to have Andy Muschietti come in and just kind of test his skills as a blockbuster director. I mean, he was so successful in turning a horror movie, It, into kind of a blockbuster. That movie made over $500 million, So they want to see what he can do with the Flash, but I don't think it's going to be Ezra Miller. I think that this is pretty much going to be a Flash reboot. So they probably threw all other versions of the script away and are having Andy Muschietti kind of start over. And to what extent, what this Flash movie will be about, I have no idea. But I think there's maybe a 10% or less chance that Ezra Miller is still attached. And again, I don't know why he wanted a darker tone. I think that if we're talking about television, out of all of the Arrowverse stuff, Arrow, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, and Flash, all that stuff, Flash is definitely my favorite, because Arrow and Supergirl and those shows get a little boring, a little tired after a while. They keep stretching. They do what a lot of shows do, and they just stretch plot points and make a simple plot point last a whole season. Flash is a lot better about that, and also because he's super fast, and he's dealing with metahumans in Central City. It's kind of a monster of the week, but also at the same time, we get some plot points that do have meaning to him personally and everything. And I don't know, I just feel like that Flash TV show is really well built, if you will, and it would be better. This will never happen now because Warner Brothers is crazy and doesn't know how to do things correctly, apparently. It would be cool if it was just that was the universe, and then our Flash movie was just the Grant Gustin Flash, connected to the TV show, but we know that won't happen. But that's what should happen. If they were smart, they would have a connected TV and movie universe, but apparently nobody wants to do that, except for now Marvel is finally going to be doing that with Disney Plus, because all of the TV shows on Disney Plus are going to be the actors from the Marvel movies. But they didn't get it right the first time with the Netflix stuff, I guess. Even though I loved Daredevil, and I like Jessica Jones, and they were supposed to be connected at first, but then over time they're like, well, I guess they're not really that connected. But anyways, we're finally going to get that stuff with Disney Plus. But, again, this, the Arrowverse, the DC Arrowverse, we call it Arrowverse because Arrow was first, it's too bad they couldn't really figure out a way to make that their movies too. But they're like, no, we gotta have movies that are just the movies, and they really screwed over the Arrowverse in a lot of ways, because the Arrowverse, like in the first couple seasons of Arrow, you have the Suicide Squad, and then they weren't allowed to use the Suicide Squad, and then they were again, and then they weren't again, and there's 1,000 examples of how the Arrowverse has been able to and not been able to use certain characters because Warner Brothers wants to use those characters in movies. And it's like, no, we don't want to confuse fans by having Slade Wilson in on a TV show if he's going to be in our movie. It's like, that just goes to show you how dumb Warner Brothers thinks we are. Where if we have a character in a TV show, they think we're going to get confused and we're not going to be able to understand that it's a different version of the character on screen. They're like, no, there can only be one version of that character. Do they not understand that, like, in general, the fans watching these things, like, are used to multiple timelines, multiple universes? That's what DC has always been about. We can have multiple versions. At one point before Crisis on Infinite Earths, there was something like 10 versions of Superman running around in the DC universe. We can handle multiple versions of Superman. The fact that they think that we can't have Batman on a television show and in movie theaters at the same time, it just shows the complete arrogance of Warner Brothers. Ignorance and arrogance. It's crazy. It's dumbfounding. I don't understand it. But anyways, getting back to the point here, Andy Muschietti, he's directing this Flash movie now. At least that's what Warner Brothers is telling us. I kind of feel like there's a good chance that he could not be, and that this is a huge misdirect. They want everybody to know, especially their stockholders and whatever, that this Flash movie that they've spent a ton of money on so far is still in production. It's still going to happen. They haven't canceled it. I don't know. We're gonna find out. It's just hilarious. Last week we were talking about how this movie was not happening. This week we're talking about how Warner Brothers says it is still happening. Is Ezra Miller still attached? We'll find out. Hopefully he'll break his silence about this, and we'll get a really good answer for it. Anyways, I'm gonna go to live questions now. Anyways, Mario Plush 100 says hi. Captain Emerald 97 says first, and technically Mario Plush 100 was first. Christian V says hello. Captain Emerald says hello. Sup, Rich? Angela Ziegler says hello. Hello, guys. Welcome to the Rich Alvarez Show. Angela Ziegler says, have you seen Far From Home yet? I still have not seen it. And I think part of I think I realized why in the last couple of months I haven't been able to see so many movies. It's because usually I see my movies in like the afternoon, and that's when I'm doing this show now. So I got to figure out a new time for me to see movies so I'm not missing them, so I can talk to you about them, because I feel like as I'm missing movies, I have less to talk about except for reporting these little reports. So I gotta figure it out. But I still need to see Toy Story 4. I still need to see Far From Home. So I need to go see those very soon. And then Angela Ziegler says, I don't want to see a Flash movie, though. I think, Flash is a great character and could feasibly have a fantastic movie. Is DC gonna do it right? Probably not. But we'll see. Captain Emerald says, I just hope the DC movies is doing better right now. I like to watch Marvel. Yeah, Marvel is better and will continue to be better for the foreseeable future until Warner Brothers, and I've been saying this for forever, Warner Brothers needs to do what they should have done a long time ago, which is hire a bunch of people to start DC Studios. Have DC Studios be its own silo over at Warner Brothers and give them creative control to make their movies. That's the way it's always been at Marvel, because Marvel was doing this before they were even purchased by Disney. It's Marvel Studios. They make their own movies. Kevin Feige is in charge of the production, and Disney just owns them, but the people at Marvel Studios are in complete control of their movies. Right now, at Warner Brothers, since there is no DC Studios, it's just the Warner Brothers executives that are running the show, a bunch of old people that have no idea how to make a comic book movie. So until they create DC Studios to run things for them, it's never going to happen, guys. Marvel's just always going to be better. Yeah. Angela Ziegler says, I see through the lies of the studios. I don't fear the dark side as you do, Richie. And then Angela says, I love Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. And then Angela says, I love Arrowverse. Alan Cavallio is here. Hi, he says, hi, Rich. Hello. Anthony A says, off topic, someone should put Mr. Potato Head next to Don Rickles' grave out of respect. Rest in peace, Don Rickles. Well, I don't know how much he cared for Mr. Potato Head. I'm assuming that he enjoyed playing the character, but I really have no idea. And was that his most favorite character? Would he want Mr. Potato Head at his grave? I mean, if I played the voice of Mr. Potato Head, I know I would, but I don't know. But anyways, yeah, rest in peace, Don Rickles. You had an excellent career. Let's see here. Angela says, why did you sound more like Mario, but Chris and Doug didn't sound anything like Luigi and Waluigi? I don't know. They did their best. I mean, I was coming off of like a huge childhood career-long musical theater career, if you want to call it that. I did a ton of school and community theater, both musical and non-musical. I had been an actor for my entire life. Even at age 19, I had already done like 20 musicals and another couple dozen non-musicals in both school productions and in community theater. So, I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but I had a ton of acting experience, and so, of course, acting experience goes into everything, including voice acting. So, I can do, it's one of my special gifts, is that I can do a wide range of imitations, impersonations. Chris was virtually coming in to Super Mario with no acting experience, and Doug did have a lot of acting experience, but he couldn't really quite grasp the Waluigi voice. I don't know. It's interesting because I think there's a lot of great things that they both can do, but that wasn't always inherently in their wheelhouse per se. Um, and if I just stretch my throat thin enough, I can do anything. I don't know. Let's see here. Angela says, despite hating Suicide Squad, I love certain characters like Harley Quinn and Deadshot, but I hate Suicide Squad. Okay. I don't care for the movie of Suicide Squad, but I like the Suicide Squad from the comics. I mean, pretty much my answer to anything at DC right now is I didn't like the movie, but I still love the comics, you know? Yeah, Matt. Oh, Matt's here. Matt, hello, Matt Provincial. You guys like Matt Provincial? He's in the comments, the live chat right now. Matt Provincial says, Richard, my man, here to say hi, and a shameless plug to promote our fantasy film. Y'all should watch the updates on my channel, as well as staying tuned for updates. And hi, fans, we still love you. And P.S. Ouch time. Ouch time! So, yeah, I had mentioned this yesterday, and I've been trying to get this idea across every day, but as Matt just pointed out, we are working on a medieval fantasy. I feel like it's mostly medieval. There's not a whole lot of fantasy in it, although that may change depending on what kind of budget we can get for it. And yeah, Matt and me are working on the Kickstarter for it, and I'm hoping to have that Kickstarter done by the end of the week so I can get you guys a link to the Kickstarter. It's going to be if it happens, it's going to be a fantastic project. Matt and me are huge fans of Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, and we kind of wanted to do our own medieval fantasy. Right now it's just kind of like a short film project that we're talking about, but even so, to be able to get the costumes and the weapons, the chainmail, the locations, we have to go find like actual like castles, or at least, something that interior wise looks convincing enough like a castle. The budget could skyrocket, and it's definitely money that me and Matt do not have, and so that Kickstarter will be available at the end of the week. So that way, whoever of you amongst you wants to support such a project will be able to support it, and you will have our super gratitude. We need, and we're hoping to get more and more people, invested. And, Matt is doing things on his own channel to promote it. I've been telling you guys about it every day. But ultimately, of course, since I can't even get my own Patreon funded, we're going to have to try to, spread that link everywhere, because we need people that are not even, we need people that even aren't Rich Alvers fans to look at this Kickstarter and promote the project, because we definitely need a bigger budget than we get sometimes. I'll do Elwood on a shoestring budget just because I love doing Elwood, and we can do it basically in our backyard with materials that we for the most part already have, because we go to Wasteland Weekend all the time, and we do collect a lot of Wasteland stuff and Fallout stuff, and so we can get Elwood done even if we don't quite make the goals. Of course, Elwood would be better if we did meet those budget goals, but we do it anyway. At least I like to do it anyway because I love it. This medieval fantasy cannot have any corners cut. There is no shoestring budget for this medieval fantasy. So this medieval fantasy either makes its budget or it doesn't get made. And that's not me being harsh, that's just me being realistic. So I will have that Kickstarter for you guys by the end of the week, and we'll see what we can do. It'll be a great project if it happens. That's all I can say. I don't want to give any plot away or anything. Woo! Anyways, let's get back to it. Derek is here. He says, ignorance, arrogance, and Aragorn. Supremacy Mech Hunter's here. But the message was retracted for some reason. Paul Unifrays here. What you just said about Marvel Studios being independent answer my question on why I never see the Disney logo next to the Marvel logo on Marvel projects. Yeah, I mean, Disney very well could put their logo on Marvel Studios movies because they're still distributing the movie. Just like how before Disney bought Marvel Studios, like Paramount was the distributor for like the Iron Man movies, and Universal was the distributor for the Hulk movie. They need a studio to distribute the movie, but Disney doesn't have anything to do with the production of these Marvel movies. It's all Marvel Studios, and then Disney just releases it, So yeah, for the most part, Disney just controls the money. But they need to do that Warner Brothers needs to do that with DC. They need to create DC Studios so they can let go and just put money in and stop, talking about it. Angela says, nice to see Wario's here. She's referring to Matt, of course, who is in the chat. Paul Unfrey says, I'm excited for the medieval fantasy film. Well, don't get too excited because it may not happen. We need that lovely, lovely budget first. And then Derek says, I bet I could do Waluigi. Of course, Derek was Waluigi in the Smash Bros. Waluigi video we did a few months ago. If you haven't seen that yet, I'm trying to remember. It was called, I think the video is called The Real Reason Why Waluigi is Not in Smash Bros. Go check that out. D-Rock plays Waluigi in that video. It's a lot of fun. Matt Provincial says, sorry, my phone's going off here like crazy. Someone's texting me. Matt Provincial says, thanks, Paul. Stay tuned. We need all the support we can get. If we get the funding and support, it can be a damn good quality film. Yeah, of course I agree. Christian V says, Rich, who was your favorite and least favorite actor from the DC movies? Man, least favorite actor, I don't know. That's kind of a tough one. Probably, I can't even think of his name. Maybe, and he's usually a good actor and other things. Like, for some reason, I'm blanking on his name. The guy, he's from Zombieland. He was Lex Luthor. Basically, whoever was Lex Luthor, and I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. The guy that played Lex Luthor. He's definitely my least favorite actor. Not only, not my least favorite actor ever, but he was my least favorite in the DC movies because I feel like he just so inaccurately portrayed Lex Luthor. I think he was trying to do a very nuanced and interesting and new thing with the character, but Lex Luthor is so cemented in the way that his character is. I just didn't believe anything coming out of him. It was a very disturbing take on the character. Oh, Jesse Eisenberg, thank you, Matt. It's a good thing Matt's here because sometimes my brain, I forget things. But yeah, Jesse Eisenberg was Lex Luthor, and I like Jesse Eisenberg in Zombieland. I like Jesse Eisenberg in the Facebook movie. I just don't care for Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I don't know how much of that was his fault or, if that was what they were telling him to do, but I didn't care for it. And if I had to say a favorite actor in the DC movies, I don't know. Probably Ben Affleck, because I love Ben Affleck in other projects, and I love the movies that Ben Affleck has directed. So I probably would have to say Ben Affleck, even though I think that, he's definitely not the best representation of Batman either, though. But that's not his fault. And you can kind of see during the movies and in the production stuff, during, the interviews before, during, and after the movie, Ben Affleck's like, yeah, I'm Batman. I was really excited to play Batman. But it's like you can tell he's like, this is not the Batman that I signed up for. So I feel bad for him. But Ben Affleck is great otherwise. Let's see here. Awkward Absol says, while Matt is in California working on the film, is there any chance there will be some extra skits or something you guys will work on? Gee, I don't know. Matt's in chat, so he can answer that. He says right now, if we have time, probably. But yeah, it's, if we do the medieval fantasy, Matt will be in town maybe for a week or two to do his part of that. He would be the main character in this film, and he would stick around to do his parts for that movie. And, I don't know. I love Matt for being optimistic, but, probably we're going to be having to spend all of our time working on that and filming that. And I don't see any time for anything else, but I don't know. Maybe we will, but I probably just be working on that. I don't know. And then Awkward Absol says, excellent, I'm looking forward to it. Paul Unifrey says, hopefully you'll get the funding for the film. Curry Games a lot says, I know this will be off topic, but will you be attending TwitchCon in San Diego? I did not go to TwitchCon last year, but Jackie did, so she might go. I don't know. I feel like I have no business at TwitchCon. Angela Ziegler says, favorite anime, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Michael Pisarino says, only a few more hours till the 4th of July. That's right. How could I forget? It is July 3rd, everyone. Today is Wednesday, July 3rd. Tomorrow is the 4th of July. Oh my god, everybody in the world is trying to text and call me. Why? What's going on? Anyways, I gotta wrap this up pretty soon. Angela Ziegler says, I feel Disney doesn't let Lucasfilm have their creative freedom. That's actually not true. Lucasfilm has all of the creative freedom. The problem is you have a old style movie producer in the form of Kathleen Kennedy running the show, and she doesn't really know how to make a Star Wars movie, but that's a topic for another day. And then Angela says, Derek was really awesome as Waluigi. His character in Elwood is funny. And Derek said, thank you, Angela. Let's see here. Angela Ziegler then says, Supremacy Mecha Hunter left off to work, or talking about something else. I love Lex Luthor. Matt says, fun fact, I met him in New York City, and he confirmed Zombieland 2 has been shot. Cool. I love Zombieland, and I can't wait for Zombieland 2. But tell him to stop playing Lex Luthor. No, don't tell him that. As if you now see him on a regular basis, you know. Angela says, I love Heath Ledger as Joker. Yeah, great. You know, Heath Ledger was great as Joker, but, you know, and I feel like that was Jesse Eisenberg's inspiration. He's like, oh, look how different Heath Ledger made the Joker. I got to make Lex Luthor really different. But the Joker is different. You can play the Joker differently because the Joker naturally can be played differently because he's so chaotic and crazy. You can kind of interpret that in a lot of different ways. But Lex Luthor has always been like the solemn businessman out. He's out for blood when it comes to Superman, but he's always been like very stern in the public eye, and I don't know, I just don't like the way that Jesse Eisenberg did. Anyways, all right, yeah, I think that's going to be it for us today. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching the Rich Alvarez show. You know, I've gone this whole week without doing any of the super chat stuff because I just kind of wanted to get back into, you know, just doing better, like, you know, talks and everything, and you know, I was trying to come up with a better super chat option for you guys, but super chats will be back tomorrow, and it'll hopefully be a lot of fun. Anyways, I'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching the Rich Alvarez Show. Bye bye.